The galactic exhibition of predatory heritage had never been this crowded. From the domed ceilings of glass and biosteel, banners in 100 alien scripts fluttered under the artificial breeze, each announcing a species and the apex beast that had once ruled their homeworld. The air shimmered with excitement, and a fair amount of fear, because this was not a zoo. It was a competition. The Predator's parade happened only once every 1,000 standard years, a ritual of pride and history where each intelligent race displayed the deadliest creature that had ever hunted them. The tradition dated back to the founding of the Galactic Concord itself, a reminder of survival, evolution, and dominance. Delegations from across the stars arrived with armored transports, security drones, containment fields, and the most dangerous lifeforms known to science. The audience buzzed with the thrill of danger, 1,000 apex predators under one roof, restrained by the best technology in existence. Near the central stage, Ambassador Tiarval of the Zerati clicked her mandibles nervously. Her race, arachnid and elegant, had brought their ancient predator, the Vornus serpent, a creature so fast that it could pierce armor before sensors registered movement. Next to her stood the crystalline delegate from the Solvec, their shimmering body refracting the light as they discussed the lethality of their entry, a plasma wraith, a being composed entirely of living fire. Every enclosure pulsed with danger. Every cage hissed, growled, or shimmered with hunger. And then the humans arrived. The galactic PA chimed, a soft melodic tone that cut through the chatter. Now presenting, delegation from the Soul Alliance of Earth. A hush fell. The newer species leaned forward in curiosity. The older ones bristled in memory. Humanity was still relatively young by galactic standards, only 300 years since their first warp contact, but their reputation had spread faster than any civilization in history. Wars ended when humans arrived. Treaties signed faster. Even predators seemed uneasy around them. And yet, everyone knew Earth itself was a world of death. It was classified Class 5 hostile biome, breathable atmosphere, rich biodiversity, and lethal fauna ratio of 0.94. The number meant something simple. If you set foot on Earth, there was a 94% chance something tried to eat you. So, naturally, everyone expected something spectacular. The audience murmured, making bets and guesses. Would it be the saltwater leviathan? The polar bear? The great white shark? Or maybe that cunning pack hunter they called the wolf? A group of claw warriors whispered among themselves, their scaled hides rippling in anticipation. Humans always exaggerate. They call everything dangerous. Watch, it'll be some mammal with teeth. The massive doors opened. What emerged was not what anyone expected. A tall human diplomat stepped forward, Ambassador Lyra Solis of Earth, dressed in a dark uniform with a single blue sash. Behind her came a small entourage of humans carrying something, a hovering stroller, lined with safety fields and soft cushioning. Inside it sat a tiny creature with round cheeks, bright eyes, and a smile that could melt iron. A human toddler. Gasps echoed through the hall. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The silence was almost painful. Then came the confused murmurs, hisses, clicks, and electronic chatter. Is this a joke? The Zerati ambassador rasped. They brought an infant, whispered a reptilian scholar. Surely this is an insult to the ancient rite, cried another. Ambassador Solis only smiled. Not at all. The tradition is clear. Each species must bring the creature that represents the deadliest predator of their world. We have brought ours. The toddler waved. Hi! The gesture caused 3 delegates to flinch. The announcement AI hesitated. The human representative declares the specimen to be their predator? Correct, Solis said calmly. The deadliest predator of humanity, the human, age 2. The laughter began almost immediately. Nervous at first, then growing. Even the insectoid delegates clicked their mandibles in amusement. You mock the sacred rite, the Solvec ambassador thundered. An infant cannot hunt. On the contrary, Solis replied, stepping forward with the calm patience of a zookeeper. Observe carefully. The humans stepped aside. The toddler, still strapped in the hover stroller, looked around at the strange, colorful audience. Giggles bubbled from him as he pointed at the monstrous displays. "Doggy?" he said, pointing at a 6-meter fanged lizard. The creature, the Vornis serpent, hissed reflexively, then froze. Its slitted eyes locked on the child. A ripple passed down its scaled body. It backed away from the force field, its body pressing against the far wall of its containment pod. That movement, the serpent recoiling in fear, made the entire audience fall silent. Ambassador Solis clasped her hands behind her back. "You see? Even your beasts recognize it." "Trickery," someone hissed. "Hardly." Solis leaned closer to the mic. "We humans are not apex predators because of claws or venom. We are apex predators because of this." She tapped her temple. "Because of curiosity, adaptability, and unpredictability. That," she nodded toward the child, "is the raw form of our nature. No logic. No restraint. Just unfiltered instinct." The toddler had managed to unclip one of his straps. Before anyone could stop him, he stood up on the seat, wobbling precariously. "Oh!" one of the human aides muttered. The child looked around, spotted something shiny, probably a containment console, and toddled straight toward it. The security drones moved to block him, but the boy squealed with delight, grabbed one by the lens, and bit it. The drones sparked, sputtered, and fell out of the air. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. The toddler bit a combat drone. Ambassador Solis sighed. "He's teething. Sorry about that." Then came the shriek. The plasma wraith, the living fire contained behind a triple field barrier, flared suddenly, its glow flickering unstable. The alien attendants panicked. "It's reacting to the emotional field," someone shouted. "It feels threatened." The toddler clapped. "Fire pretty!" The wraith flared brighter. The containment alarms blared. For a moment, the plasma barrier pulsed dangerously close to collapse. Ambassador Solis calmly pressed a button on her wristband. "Containment override, level 4. Please keep your entities stable." "He gets excited around lights." The galactic delegate stared, utterly bewildered. The Solvec delegate leaned toward another and whispered, "Is that thing controlling our apex predator?" The Zerati ambassador shuddered. "No. It's amusing itself." In the stands, the audience began whispering, fearful, fascinated, uncertain. The toddler, oblivious, found something even better, a snack pouch. He reached in, pulled out a small, sticky square of fruit gel, and began chewing. The sound of his tiny teeth tearing the synthetic gel was somehow louder than the mechanical hum of the exhibition hall. The predators reacted instinctively, ears twitching, nostrils flaring, muscles tensing. The primal part of every creature in that room recognized it, the sound of something eating without fear. Ambassador Solis looked around. "Do you understand now why we are the apex species of our world? That," she nodded toward the child, "is what every predator on Earth fears. The one that smiles, laughs, and eats while surrounded by danger. The one that cannot comprehend fear." The crowd was silent. Even the banners seemed to hang still in the air. The toddler, finished with his snack, looked up at the towering aliens around him, blinked twice, and let out a sudden, high-pitched scream of pure toddler energy. Half the hall flinched. One delegate fainted. The Vornis serpent coiled tighter, hissing softly to itself like a creature praying to an ancient god. "Nap time," muttered one of the human aides, already retrieving a blanket. Solis smiled pleasantly as her aides picked up the now yawning child. "This concludes Earth's demonstration." "Wait," the Solvec ambassador sputtered. "That's it? That's your deadly predator?" "Of course not," Solis said. "That's our predator before training. Imagine one that can walk, talk, and hold a tool." The silence that followed was absolute. And then the realization hit the room like a wave: this wasn't a joke. Humans had brought not a beast, not a monster, but the essence of what made them terrifying. The unshaped chaos of instinct and intelligence wrapped in innocent skin. The oldest species in the galaxy, those who remembered Earth's colonization campaigns and their brutal efficiency, looked at the child and saw truth. The toddler wasn't a threat because of what he was. He was a threat because of what he would become. The Galactic Council's High Chairperson, a venerable being of the Kalari, finally found his voice. The human exhibit is accepted. He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Contain your young. Solis bowed slightly. We'll do our best. But containment, she said with a faint smile, has never been one of our strong points. As the humans exited, the toddler babbled softly, waving at the terrified delegates. Bye! The moment the doors sealed shut, a shiver ran through the hall. The predators roared, clawed, hissed, but none looked at their keepers. All of them, without exception, stared at the doors where the human child had left, as if watching for something far worse than themselves. In the silence that followed, the Kalari chairperson whispered the question everyone was too afraid to voice. If that was only their child, what are the adults like? No one remembered dismissing the humans. They simply left, calm and composed, the small child asleep in his hover stroller. Yet long after they departed, the atmosphere in the grand exhibition hall refused to settle. The predators were restless. Containment fields flickered and glowed as sensors registered agitation in nearly every enclosure. The Vorna's serpent coiled and uncoiled like a live wire. The plasma wraith's internal temperature climbed by 3 degrees. The Akka beast from the Drazen homeworld began pacing so violently that micro-cracks formed in the transparent durasteel of its pen. Adjust the stabilizers, shouted a technician. They're already maxed out, came the reply. Ambassador Tiarval of the Zerati rubbed her trembling mandibles together. This reaction is unnatural. It's as if every predator can still sense it, the human child. They can, said the Solvec ambassador grimly. Predators feel fear like resonance. The child projected something into them. Projected? Tiarval snapped. It was a toddler! What could it possibly project? The crystalline being's facets dimmed, a sign of unease. Something very old. Something that has no translation. The Galactic Chairperson called an emergency session within the hour. Delegates filed into the smaller chamber, the hum of containment alarms echoing through the walls. At the head of the curved table, the chairperson's voice trembled. We must determine whether humanity has violated the exhibition code. This demonstration borders on psychic warfare. Psychic? Scoffed Tiarval. You think that thing used telepathy? It drooled on itself. Exactly, said the Solvec. No defense. No filter. Pure biological instinct. Every predator in this hall sensed it, an apex mind in embryonic form. The room fell quiet. The phrase apex mind hung heavy in the air. Before anyone could respond, the chamber lights flickered. A security officer rushed in, his face pale. Chairperson, the human exhibit area is malfunctioning. The humans left. Yes, sir. But their influence didn't. The delegates followed him back to the exhibition floor. What they saw defied logic. The toddler's stroller was gone, of course, but every containment field glowed faintly blue, a human residual radiation signature. Around it, the predators were behaving strangely. The Vorna's serpent was no longer hissing or pacing, it was building. It had dragged pieces of its containment foam into a pile, coiling them carefully like nesting material. The Akka beast was stacking objects, claws moving with startling precision. The plasma wraith's flames formed structured pulses, binary rhythm, almost like music. The hall filled with horrified whispers. What are they doing? They're imitating. Tiarval's mandibles clicked open. Imitating what? Ambassador Solis' voice echoed from behind them. Us. Every head turned. She stood there with the calm patience of someone who had expected this all along. Her aides flanked her, the sleeping toddler still in the hover cradle, snuggled under a blanket printed with cartoon stars. The delegates instinctively backed away. Solis raised an eyebrow. You called for an investigation, I believe? The chairperson hesitated. Ambassador, Your display has caused instability in nearly all predatory enclosures. What have you done to them? Nothing intentional, she replied. But perhaps you should have considered the psychological impact. Our child interacted with them. They responded. It's natural. Natural? The Soviet ambassador thundered. They're constructing patterns, cooperative behavior, in species that haven't cooperated in millions of years. Yes. Solis's voice was steady. Because they've learned something new. The toddler stirred, rubbing his eyes, then spotted the serpentine monster still coiling its nest of foam. He grinned and clapped. Snake sleepy? The Vorna serpent froze, mid-motion. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air, then, impossibly, it lowered its head, as if bowing to the child. Screams and gasps erupted through the hall. Tiarval backed away. That's not submission, that's bonding, Solis sighed. On Earth, we have a saying, everything that can love a human, eventually does. Love? The chairperson's voice cracked. You mean to say that creature is recognizing pack behavior? Solis interrupted softly. It's what our predators did. It's why wolves became dogs. Why wild cats became companions. Why even apex hunters learned to sleep beside our fires. The hall was utterly still. And, she continued, why your predators are trying to copy us now. The toddler yawned again and reached for his snack pouch. One of the aides opened it, handing him another piece of fruit gel. The sound of chewing echoed through the tense silence. Tiarval's voice trembled. If this is true, then your species could tame anything. Solis nodded once. Eventually. The Soviet ambassador slammed his crystalline hand on the table. Unacceptable. This power cannot be allowed. You bring contagion of control. Solis gave a small, wry smile. Control? No. Affection. Before the ambassador could argue, the alarms changed tone, a deep, pulsing wail. Security holograms flickered to life across the hall. Alert, containment breach detected, Sector 3. The crowd turned as a section of the exhibition wall exploded outward. A 6-meter predator known as a Gore-High Ravager burst free, metal restraints snapping like thread. Its roar rattled bones. Delegates screamed, scattering. Security drones activated their stunners, firing blue arcs of energy. But the Ravager shrugged them off, eyes wild and burning with primal fury. Its jaws opened, revealing triple rows of serrated fangs. Solis stood her ground. The aides moved to shield the child, but he was already awake, staring at the monster with open curiosity. The Ravager roared again, louder this time, shaking the air. The toddler blinked unimpressed. Doggy loud. Then he giggled. Something about that sound froze the Ravager mid-lunge. The towering creature hesitated, nostrils flaring, muscles trembling. It cocked its massive head as if confused. The child reached out a hand, sticky from fruit gel, and waved. Hi, doggy. Every being in the room held its breath. The Ravager took one hesitant step forward, then another. Instead of attacking, it lowered itself onto its forelimbs and let out a sound no one had ever recorded before, a low, rumbling whine. Solis knelt beside the child, her expression unreadable. You see? They all remember something deep inside. The same instinct that made our beasts protect us. Security officers stared in disbelief. It's responding to him. The toddler leaned forward, reaching for the Ravager's snout. The massive creature sniffed his hand, then gently nudged it, exhaling a gust of hot breath. Cameras captured the moment, the deadliest predator of a dozen worlds, bowing its head to a human child. And that image, transmitted live across the galaxy, changed everything. Millions of beings saw it, the Ravager, the unbreakable, kneeling before a 2-year-old human. Social channels exploded. Panic. Debate. Fear. Within hours, governments issued containment protocols for any species with humans present. Trade negotiations halted. The word human trended across 10,000 systems. Back in the hall, chaos reigned. The other predators were reacting now, some pressing against their barriers, others howling in strange, echoing calls. The sound was almost coordinated. The toddler watched, delighted. He clapped again, and as if on cue, a chorus of roars answered him. Solice's calm facade finally cracked. "We need to leave," she said sharply to her aides. "Now." "Too late," whispered Tiarval. "They're all responding to him." Field after field failed, one after another, releasing predators that didn't attack, just gathered. The air shimmered with heat, energy, and animal scent. Dozens of apex predators stood before the humans in a wide half-circle, their eyes glowing in the dim light. They weren't predators anymore. They were a pack. The toddler reached out again. One of the beasts, a Side-Talon Drask, leaned forward, brushing its scaled head against the edge of his hover cradle. The child giggled and patted it. "They're imprinting," whispered Tiarval, horrified. "Every one of them." The Solvec ambassador backed away. "This cannot be allowed to continue. Shut it down, now!" But no one dared move. Solice stood slowly, her eyes cold and ancient now, no trace of humor in her tone. "You invited us to display our predator. You wanted to understand what made us apex. Now you understand." The chairperson's voice was barely a whisper. "You control monsters with emotion?" Solice smiled faintly. "Not control. Connection." She looked down at the sleepy toddler surrounded by alien predators. "Every human carries it. The instinct to make the world love them, or fear them. Usually both." The hall shook as the predators began to move as one, turning toward the distant exits, forming a slow, rhythmic march. The sound was primal, like thunder given form. "They're following him," someone gasped. Solice nodded. "Because they think he's their alpha now." Outside, emergency barriers slammed shut. Security forces assembled, weapons humming. But when they saw what emerged, a horde of alien apex predators moving in perfect formation around a human child, they froze. The toddler yawned, resting his head against the side of his cradle. The beasts halted instantly, lowering themselves as if guarding him while he slept. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Solice spoke softly into her communicator. "Earth Command, demonstration complete. Phase 1 successful." The comm crackled. "Confirmed, Ambassador. Retrieval team en route." Tiarval's mandibles clattered. "Phase 1? What is this?" Solice looked up, eyes glinting with quiet pride. "Proof of concept." The chairperson took a step forward. "You planned this? You plan to unleash?" "No," Solice interrupted. "We plan to remind you. You fear our weapons, our ships, our science. But those are only extensions of this." She nodded toward the child, now asleep. "You've seen the source." The predators rumbled softly, protective growls resonating through the air. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council understood something fundamental. Humanity didn't conquer because they were violent. They conquered because everything violent eventually wanted to protect them. Outside, the lights of a human shuttle pierced the exhibition dome, descending through the chaos. The crowd scattered, awe and terror mingling. Ambassador Solice picked up the child gently. "He'll wake soon," she said. "When he does, I suggest everyone keep their distance. He's cranky after naps." And as she carried him toward the shuttle, the predators followed, silent and obedient, an army that no one had ever intended to create. By the time dawn rose over the galactic capital, the footage had circled every network across the known sectors. A single human toddler, surrounded by the most dangerous predators in existence, asleep in a hover cradle, and they guarded him as if he were divine. The image broke the galaxy. For some, it was a miracle. For others, a declaration of war. No one knew which side to stand on. The Galactic Council Emergency Assembly convened at once, summoning every ambassador, every strategist, every security intelligence head. The chamber thrummed with overlapping voices, clicks, hums, growls, and synthesized tones, each one demanding to know how humanity had done it. Ambassador Tiarval of the Zerati slammed her spindly leg onto the table. "They have destabilized our biosecurity. My world's apex predator has formed a nesting pattern for a human child. Containment fields failed across 7 sectors, added the Solvec representative. Even the race bowed. The WRATHS. Do you understand? Energy-based entities obeyed him. The chairperson of the council, old and trembling, raised a clawed hand for silence. We must proceed carefully. Earth has not declared hostility. They have only demonstrated. Demonstrated what? Growled the reptilian admiral from the Drazen Empire. That they can control life itself? No, came a calm voice from the doorway. That we can connect to it. All heads turned. Ambassador Solis stood there, immaculate in her dark uniform, her expression as calm as if she were addressing a classroom. Behind her floated the hover cradle, the toddler inside, still asleep, a faint trail of drool glistening on his chin. Guards raised their weapons instantly. Don't, Solis warned gently. You'll scare him. And you don't want him scared. Ambassador Solis? The chairperson rasped. You will explain, at once, what occurred yesterday. How did your child, your predator, breach containment? Solis clasped her hands behind her back. Containment is a human illusion, she said simply. We've learned that the harder you try to restrain chaos, the more it learns to escape. We don't trap our predators, we teach them to live beside us. The Solvec delegate slammed a crystal fist against the table, scattering sparks of light. Your child enslaved apex entities across 10 worlds. Solis shook her head. No enslavement. They made a choice. Instinct recognizes balance. You built empires of control. We built relationships. The room erupted again, shouts, arguments, panic. The toddler stirred in his cradle. Instant silence. Every being froze. Even the chairperson's frills flattened in fear. The child blinked awake, squinting at the bright lights of the chamber. He rubbed his eyes, yawned, and then, horrifyingly, began to climb out. Get him away from the consoles! Someone hissed. Too late. The toddler toddled straight toward the central holodisplay of the Galactic Assembly, the massive, glowing sphere that projected the map territories of the entire known galaxy. He reached up, pressed his chubby hand to it, and giggled as the colors rippled outward in response. The holo recognized him as a sentient input. Lines of light shifted. Dozens of sectors flashed red, then rearranged themselves into spirals that resembled finger paintings. Delegates gasped in horror. He's overriding the core star map! Solis sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. He likes colors. Technicians scrambled at their consoles. He's accessing the navigation data. Systems are linking to his touch pattern. The holo flickered, and every star system containing human colonies began to pulse blue. Then the sound came. A faint humming, not from the toddler, but from outside. Ambassador, the chairperson whispered. What is that? Back up, Solis said quietly. The chamber's glass ceiling darkened as something vast eclipsed the sunlight. Through the reinforced windows, the delegates saw a fleet descending, human ships, sleek and black, hundreds of them, forming perfect geometric alignment above the capital. The humans hadn't come to attack. They came to protect. Earth Command was monitoring the live feed, Solis explained. When they saw the Predator's bond with the child, they decided to ensure his safety. You understand, of course, he's valuable. Valuable? Tiarval hissed. That child is a weapon. Solis tilted her head. A weapon that hugs things, yes? But you're missing the point. She stepped closer to the holo. The toddler had now sat down in the middle of the glowing projection, tracing little circles on the map. Each time his tiny finger moved, a burst of communication signals fired through the human fleet, synchronized. He's controlling your ships, a delegate shouted. Solis smiled faintly. Not controlling. Guiding. Humans and technology, we imprint on each other too. The entire chamber seemed to tilt with the realization. The chairperson spoke softly, trembling. Ambassador, if what you say is true, If a human child can influence both life and machine instinctively, then there will be no balance of power left in this galaxy. Exactly, Solis said. Which is why you need to decide whether to fight it, or learn from it. The child suddenly giggled again. His tiny voice echoed unnaturally loud through the chamber's acoustics. Every sound-sensitive species flinched in pain. The pitch wasn't merely audible, it carried subsonic resonance. The building's lighting dimmed for a moment. The toddler had just shouted at the speed of biology itself. From the observation deck above, a brazen officer pressed her comm link. Containment teams, move! In. The Ravager appeared. It came out of nowhere, smashing through reinforced glass like paper, landing between the child and the guards. Its black hide shimmered under the floodlights, eyes glowing a deep amber. The guards froze, weapons trembling. The Ravager turned its head toward Solis, then lowered itself beside the child protectively. Behind it, the others followed, the Vornis serpent, the plasma wraith, the Drask. They had escaped planetary containment across light years, drawn here like migrating beasts toward a single call. The human toddler. How did they get here? Cried a guard. Solis looked at the assembled horrors gathering in the council hall, forming a living wall around the child. You think distance matters? They heard his voice. The hall plunged into panic. Security barriers snapped into place, dividing factions. But the predators didn't attack. They stood perfectly still, like statues awaiting command. The toddler looked up, eyes wide, and pointed toward one of the terrified delegates. Kitty? The Vornis serpent hissed softly, not in aggression, but in what could only be described as curiosity, and leaned down toward the trembling alien. Please, the chairperson begged. Stop this madness. Solis didn't move. Stop it? This is us. You wanted to see our predator. You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous. Now you see it. It's not rage. It's connection. Tiarval hissed in disbelief. You can't just connect with death itself. Solis smiled sadly. We always have. Fire, steel, storms, beasts, we don't run from them. We make them ours. The toddler's laughter echoed again, bright and innocent. The massive predators reacted instantly, relaxing, lowering their heads. The vibration from their combined purring, humming, or growling made the floor tremble. And for a fleeting moment, something impossible happened. Every species in the chamber, every alien heart, felt it. A ripple of empathy. A warmth that bypassed logic. A primitive memory buried deep in DNA, the urge to care for the small thing that laughs in danger. Even Tiarval froze, her multifaceted eyes shimmering. What is this feeling? Solis looked around the chamber. It's why you'll never destroy us. Because even when you fear us, some part of you wants to protect us. A warning siren blared, external weapons lock detected. The Galactic Defense Fleet, orbiting above, had targeted the human ships. Solis's communicator buzzed. Ambassador, we're detecting Council fleet targeting arrays. Came a human voice. Hold fire, she said evenly. Do not engage unless fired upon. But the toddler had already noticed the flashing red lights from the ceiling display. He frowned, tiny eyebrows furrowing. Bad lights. The word bad echoed through the chamber's translation matrix. It carried no authority, no aggression, but the predators reacted instantly. They looked up at the glowing symbols of the orbital weapons network and roared as one. The sound shattered glass, bent metal, and sent a shockwave through the city. Every defense array in orbit flickered offline simultaneously. Systems scrambled as the resonance interfered with power cores. Ships drifted powerless. The galaxy's most powerful armada just went dark, because a toddler got annoyed. Solis whispered almost to herself. And you still think we're the dangerous ones? The council chamber descended into chaos. Some delegates fled. Others dropped to their knees in awe. The child, yawning again, turned to Solis and murmured, Nap now? Yes, sweetheart, Solis said softly, scooping him up. You've done enough for today. As she carried him out, the predators followed like shadows. None dared block their path. The chairperson's voice trembled. Ambassador Solis, what happens when he grows up? Solis paused at the doorway. The light from the human ships reflected off her face, half illumined, half shadowed. When he grows up, she said, he'll stop being something the universe fears, and start being something it believes in. She glanced back once. That's what humans do. We make monsters, and then we teach them to love. With that, she stepped through the shattered doors, the toddler's small hand gripping her collar, the beast padding silently behind. Outside, under the silver-blue sky, the human fleet hung motionless, waiting. The galaxy, for the first time in millennia, held its breath. And somewhere deep in the primal cores of every sentient being present, one thought repeated itself, unbidden and inescapable. If this is how they begin, what will they become? The air inside the Hall of Apexes shimmered as the aftermath of chaos settled. What had started as a formal interspecies exhibition had turned into something no one had prepared for, an existential crisis wrapped in the shrill giggle of a human toddler. Ambassador Kalar's voice trembled as he adjusted his frill. For the record, the human spawn subdued 9 apex predators without physical contact. He stared at the shattered podiums, the claw marks in the walls, and the whimpering Grix warbeast still hiding behind its handler. Is this normal? The human parent, a calm, slightly embarrassed woman named Dr. Lila Hayes, adjusted her jacket, picking up her child, Harper, from the floor. The little one's cheeks were smeared with blue alien frosting. Oh, Harper's just having an off day, she said cheerfully. The Council of Apex Keepers exchanged a collective, horrified silence. Harper yawned, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. Around them, hundreds of alien delegates took a cautious step back, as if the small, drowsy creature were a dormant superweapon. Dr. Trell, the Saurian xenobiologist who had previously mocked the soft-skinned apex, whispered in disbelief. She cannot even walk straight. Captain Run of the Veil, his mandibles twitching, replied grimly. That's what terrifies me. The reconstruction of the hall took 3 days, though the damage to interspecies pride would last centuries. Every participant was required to file an official account of the Toddler incident, though most entries ended with the same phrase. Unclear what happened after the human child smiled. For Lila, the council summoned her again, this time under the pretense of a scientific debriefing. The meeting chamber was tense. Rows of species representatives stared at her, as if she were carrying a biological plague. Harper sat on her lap, calmly chewing on what appeared to be a piece of an alien toy. Counselor Vex of the Triarch Collective adjusted his translator node. Dr. Hayes, Earth was invited to display an apex predator. What you brought was... He gestured helplessly at the sleeping toddler. This. Lila smiled. Yes. Humanity's apex predator. A collective murmur rippled across the chamber. Outrage, disbelief, confusion. Counselor Vex slammed his tentacle on the table. Explain yourself? She nodded. Every other species here brought something lethal, tooth, claw, venom. But we humans, our apex isn't physical. Trell hissed. That thing melted the will of an Ulcan devourer. Exactly, Lila said softly. Because it didn't know fear. It didn't understand danger. Harper just was. She looked down at her daughter, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Human toddlers are chaos made flesh. They test everything. They climb, they throw, they touch fire, they scream into the void until something happens. That curiosity, that defiance, it's why we survived when we shouldn't have. Harper doesn't think the universe is bigger than her. She expects it to listen. Her voice softened, yet the room was silent. We didn't evolve to be the strongest, or fastest, or most venomous. We survived because we never stopped challenging what scared us, even when we were barely more than toddlers ourselves. She leaned back, letting the truth hang in the air. That's humanity's apex trait, our refusal to yield. The council fell into deep deliberation. Some demanded Earth be sanctioned for weaponizing offspring. Others argued that it wasn't a weapon, it was worse. a natural force that broke every known behavioral model of apex control. Meanwhile, in the observation nursery, Harper found new friends. A cautious wrathling, all teeth and fur, watched as the toddler toddled toward it with a toy cube. Harper handed the cube to the beast. The wrathling blinked, confused, then carefully pushed it back. Harper laughed and clapped her hands. Within minutes, the nursery's predator-proof glass was fogged from the heat of laughter, growls, and happy shrieks. The toddler and the apex played like equals. The guards outside exchanged glances. "She's training it?" one asked. "Or converting it?" the other replied, voice trembling. When Lila arrived to collect her daughter, the wrathling, known galaxy-wide for shredding battle mechs, whimpered and tried to follow her. By the time she left the chamber, the council had changed its agenda. They no longer discussed sanctions. They discussed containment. Words spread fast across the stars. In the markets of Kalura, merchants sold Harper replicas, tiny dolls meant to ward off predators. On the military world of Xeron, trainers replayed footage of the toddler's antics as a case study in psychological dominance through nonverbal unpredictability. The Galactic Archive even added a new classification: human youngling, Stage 1 Apex, interaction discouraged without protective barriers. For weeks, the humans were summoned to explain themselves. Lila attended each inquiry with the same calm smile, Harper always beside her. Diplomats, soldiers, and scientists tried to measure what could not be measured: the sheer gravitational pull of human unpredictability. One scholar suggested testing Harper's reactions under controlled conditions. The toddler immediately bit his finger. The report labeled her response direct feedback. But beyond the laughter and viral clips, something deeper began to spread: unease. The galaxy had long prided itself on mastering nature's dangers. Every apex on display was leashed, trained, predictable. But the human child had proven that humanity's strength wasn't in control, it was in defiance of it. Species that had thought themselves at the top of their ecosystems began to reevaluate their own evolutionary paths. Civilizations that once mocked humans for emotional instability began studying it as a weaponized trait. The toddler had done more to change galactic philosophy than any ambassador in a millennium. Weeks later, the Council reconvened to announce a new interspecies classification law. "Effective immediately," read the decree. "Human juveniles are to be considered high-risk entities until age maturation is achieved." When asked for clarification, Counselor Vex sighed. "Until they stop eating crayons and questioning the laws of physics." That night, aboard the human embassy ship Endeavor, Lila sat by the viewport, watching the stars drift by. Harper slept soundly in her lap, clutching a plush alien toy, the same one that had once snarled at her in the hall. Captain Run, the Veil warrior who had witnessed the chaos firsthand, approached quietly. His usual armor gleamed faintly in the starlight. "Dr. Hayes," he began, his voice oddly gentle, "the Council fears what they don't understand. You've given them much to fear." Lila smiled faintly. "We didn't mean to." Run tilted his head. "You call this small one your apex predator. But she shows no malice. Only curiosity. That's the danger," Lila said softly. "We don't need malice to be terrifying. We just need to wonder what happens if we push a little further. That's what built our ships. That's what got us here." Run nodded slowly, glancing at the sleeping child. "And that is what will make the galaxy tremble." Years later, long after the incident faded into legend, the Hall of Apexes was rebuilt. But one exhibit remained permanently closed, a glass chamber, sealed and empty, with a single plaque beneath it. It read, "Homo sapiens, age 2, containment incomplete." Visitors came from every world to stare at the empty space and wonder what kind of creature could have terrified an entire galaxy without claws or fangs. On Earth, Harper grew. She no longer scared apex predators, she trained them. She learned languages, built machines, and climbed mountains that no one else dared. And sometimes, when she looked up at the night sky, she would giggle, the same wild, fearless sound that had once silenced 1,000 alien hearts. Back in the Galactic Council records, a final line was appended to the incident report by an anonymous clerk, likely human. The galaxy asked for humanity's deadliest predator. We showed them a child. They never recovered.